What is going on? Welcome back to the Victory with Vatche podcast. Stoked to have you here with us. So, today's episode, I want to talk about how to stick to your diet on the weekends and how weekend eating is essentially ruining your progress. And I want to give you some tips, give you some pointers on how to stay on track with your nutrition, with your fitness during the weekend. So, first things first tip I have for you is I see a lot of people struggle with this, whether it's clients or people who reach out and say they're struggling with the weekend. It's the alcohol, and not necessarily the alcohol itself as in, the calories that are in alcohol, for example. That's one thing, but usually it's the choices you make when you're tipsy, drunk, whatever it may be. When you've had a few drinks, you're probably not making the best decisions and choices with your nutrition, with your nutrition and your eating when you are essentially not sober, right? It's hard as it is if you are sober, but when you have some drinks going in and people say, hey, let's get some pizza, or that taco spot is looking real tempting, right? It's going to be tough to stay on track. And here's the thing: you can have pizza, you can have some drinks, right? I'm saying limit your alcohol. I'm not saying eliminate it and go cold turkey and just be completely sober the entire time that you are trying to lose fat. I'm not saying that. I am saying that setting boundaries is super important, and it's something that you should practice. I mean, you set boundaries in all parts of your life, right? When it comes to your work or your relationships, your romantic or platonic relationships, with family members. It's important to set boundaries with your eating and with your drinking too, right? Now, when it comes to fat loss, you can still see results while drinking alcohol every now and then, right? But it's important to at least have a number in mind of how many drinks you're going to have per week. Or if you're going out to an event or social outing and there's going to be a lot of alcohol and this, just say to yourself, hey, I'm going to have a couple drinks, however many it is for you. I'm going to drink plenty of water, and I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to do my best to stick to it. And if you don't, kind of learn from it and ask yourself why. And if you do, well, that's great, right? And keep up with it. It's tough, right? It's tough when especially when not everyone's going to have the same goals as you. It's extremely tough. But if it's important to you, you will find a way to limit that alcohol. Like I said, you can still make results. You can still see results and make progress while consuming alcohol, while trying to lose fat. But it's best to limit it. And it's just best to limit it. Yeah, there are calories in alcohol itself, but also the choices you make with the alcohol is not going to be the best either. So that's my first tip for staying on track on the weekends. Number 2 is staying active. Now, I know a lot of people, they probably, if you're listening to this, maybe you work out on the weekdays, Monday through Friday, or whichever days on the weekdays, and then you're like, okay, it's the weekend, I'm going to relax, I'm going to kick back, I'm just going to chill on the couch. Nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with relaxing. I know you're a working professional out there, you're busy, but I do think that getting some steps in, getting any activity or movement is going to be important on the weekend for a couple reasons. So, number 1 is, I feel like if you are staying active during the entire week and not just the weekdays, but the weekends as well, it could really help with you kind of sticking to your goals, sticking to your fitness goals, and helping you feel good. That's the first thing. Number 2 is staying active and walking more and having a step goal or just getting more activity in, no matter what it is. I think it's really important because it helps you kind of burn some calories, and it can also help you make some more room with your calorie budget. For example, somebody who isn't active at all and doesn't get any steps, they're probably not going to be able to eat as many calories as somebody who is more active. So if it is possible, I think it's a great tip to stay active during the weekends. I'm not saying you got to go do CrossFit classes on the weekends, especially if you've been hitting workouts on the weekdays. But I do think that going for a nice walk with your dog or with your partner or alone or with a friend, or no matter, it doesn't matter with who, I think getting some sort of steps in, or whether it's a hike or even just some even if it's just doing some errands or cleaning or going grocery shopping, I just staying active and getting some steps in. I think that's a great way to stay active during the weekend, because if you are kind of a couch potato from Friday to Sunday night, or I guess Friday evening to Sunday night, it's going to be hard to kind of pick back up on Monday. So I think that it is a great way to kind of stay on track during the weekend, is staying active. And then another tip I have for you, tip number 3, is finding hobbies you enjoy that are non-food related. So I talk about this a lot on my Instagram. I talk a lot on the podcast too about non-food related hobbies. So the reason why it's tough to stay on track during the weekend is because we get caught up. We're bored, right? We're usually bored on the weekends. We're chilling. We're at home. We're not working. We got football going. We got sports. We got the movies and Netflix. All these things. All the snacks are right next, right in the cabinet, in the fridge, in the freezer. So it's easy to get up and just take these things and start munching on it. So I do think that if you have a hobby, whether it's reading or going on a walk or phoning a friend or knitting, or it doesn't matter what it is, working on a side hustle or writing, journaling, find something you really enjoy doing, something you're passionate about that's non-food related. That way you can take your mind off eating. Of course you should still eat. I'm not saying you should just skip meals. Of course not. But what I'm saying is a lot of weekend eating is boredom eating, or just eating because everyone else is eating, or eating for the sake of it. And typically what we should do is when we're hungry, we should eat, right? And when you do eat, it's something more nutritious. But I know a lot of you out there are struggling with eating even if you're not hungry, or eating if you're just bored. And it's really tough to solve. But I do highly recommend, finding some sort of activity or hobby you're passionate about, focusing on that in between meals so you're not getting up and going snacking. So that's my third tip. And then another tip I have for you is have some sort of meal or snack prepped up. I'm not saying you got a meal prep for the entire weekend, right? I'm not saying that. But I do think that when you open your fridge or your pantry, there should be some healthier options in there on the weekend as well. So if you're hitting your protein, you're eating fruits and veggies on the weekdays, try to have some of those too on the weekend. Try to have similar foods. That way, when you are hungry, you can actually kind of crush that hunger and you could stay full. And that's by eating those more healthier options. I think that's a great way to go about it. Because if you open the pantry and the fridge and there's just pizza and chips and there's really nothing there that's nutritious at all, it's going to be hard for you to reach that level of fullness that you want, especially with fat loss. Especially if your goal is fat loss, you're probably going to be a bit more mindful and lower in the calories, not super low, but lower in the calories. So it's going to be important to really hit those calorie goals, because if you are someone who has a calorie deficit and is doing great on the weekdays, you can easily get rid of that deficit on the weekend if you don't follow these. First of all, if you don't follow these tips. Also, if you just don't have a plan. So having a plan, having some healthy meals prepped, whether that's just chopped up fruits and veggies or rotisserie chicken or some sort of frozen meat that you could kind of cook up in the air fryer or whatever it is, just something convenient. Doesn't have to be perfect 5-star dish, but just something that is more filling, right? Protein, something, some fruits and veggies, some fiber, that can help a lot. And then another tip I have for you is if you're going out to eat on the weekend, if it's a chain restaurant, what happens is sometimes they have the menu, they have the calorie count on there. You can go ahead and look that up online before then. You can kind of see the menu and see if there's any healthier options. But also, what I want to say is, if you're going to a tailgate or an event, right, on the weekend, and there's a lot of booze and there's a lot of food, what I want you to do is I want you to view certain foods, like if there's this awesome brownie that your aunt makes, right, or whatever it may be, and you barely have it, and it's so delicious, and you're like, that's a hell yes, like I'm not going to just skip out on that. I really want that. So you can have that, right? Take that. But if there's like, let's say there's cornbread or something you don't love, right? You're like, I don't really like that much. Instead of just eating it just to eat it, you could be like, I'm gonna pass on that and I'm gonna go for the brownie, right? Because that's delicious. And if there are any healthier options with you, around you, if there are any fruits or veggies or protein sources, definitely opt for those. I think that could be a great idea, as well as staying hydrated. I think staying hydrated is definitely underrated, and it could help you stay more full when you're eating. But ultimately, during the weekend, it's kind of in your best interest to eat similarly to how you eat on the weekdays. I know that you're not always in control of that when you're going out or when you're celebrating something. That's different. But what I would say is, if you're around food that isn't the most nutritious, hey, take a plate, have some of your foods that you want to actually eat slowly, eat mindfully, and actually enjoy the food. Stay hydrated, and just say, hey, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And then once I get back home or wherever, you're going to get back to your normal routine and back on track, right? You can eat mindfully when you're going out, just like how you should be eating mindfully when you're at home. Trying your best to do the same when you're going out on the weekend. Or if you're staying home for the weekend, it's super important to be mindful of your eating. I know it's so easy to kind of just grab the chips and go for it, but I do think that taking your time while eating is going to help a lot. So there are my tips on helping you stay on track during the weekend. Let me know if that helps. I know the weekend is a struggle, guys, but hopefully if you implement those tips, get some ideas going, and that can help you stay on track during the weekend. Hey, I appreciate you tuning into this episode. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.